When it's dark enough outside, like blue hour or nighttime, long exposures are actually pretty easy because they force you to use a longer shutter speed. If there's a subject moving in your frame, you can capture some of that movement with the long shutter speed, showing some motion in the shot. But what if it's bright outside? It's too bright, and even your slowest shutter speed is still way too fast to capture any of that motion. Usually you're going to want to use a neutral density filter to force your camera to use a slower shutter speed. But those neutral density filters are actually a little bit expensive. So today I'm going to show you a little trick in Photoshop to get that slow shutter speed effect without using a neutral density filter. Let's get started. Today we're going to show you how to get the long exposure effect showing motion in the shot without the use of a neutral density filter. And that's going to be obtained by using Photoshop and a little bit of a trick by using multiple images, stacking them, and getting that effect of the long exposure with the motion. So let's take a look here on the computer screen. Today we've got the example of fog rolling in the shot here. You're going to see in the shot, our aperture is set to f2.8. Even if we close it down, the shutter speed is still going to be way too fast. This is actually on a drone where f2.8 is the recommended sharpest aperture. But again, even if we close it down to something like f16, you can see here with 2.8, 1/80, 1/80th of a second is going to be our slowest possible shutter speed to get the right exposure. So the way you capture the shot for this little effect is you want to take multiple images. So you're going to want to set your camera to continuous shot. So with continuous shot, instead of single shot, you're going to be able to hold the shutter down. And when you hold that shutter down, your camera will take a series of shots. And essentially, the result is going to be a time lapse. Like a mini time lapse. If we take a look here again at the computer, let's go and scroll here. Watch the fog as I click through these frames here. You can see that it's moving, and we can see that little bit of motion in the shot. Let's go back and forth there. Again, that's going to be our mini time lapse there. So once you have that, you can do some of your basic exposure adjustments, make sure all the frames look fairly even, and we're going to take those frames and then we're going to save them. So whether you're in Lightroom or Capture One, we're going to save them as full-size TIFFs in order to import them into Photoshop. So we're going to go to File, and let's export the images. And let's look for a folder to export to. So we'll put it in its own individual folder format. You can do JPEG or TIFF. Let's do it TIFF for this example. And we'll keep it scale fixed. Just for the sake of time and saving file size, let's do it at 50%. And let's go ahead and save it. Okay, so now that we have all our files exported, we're going to go to Photoshop so we can import them in as a stack. So let's do that right now. We're in Photoshop now. First thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go to File, and we're going to go to Scripts right here on the bottom. Now load files into stack. You can see we can click Browse here. So click Browse, and let's look for our images. And we're going to go with Fog Long Exposure. We've exported them all here. And I think I have an extra file there. Let's take that out, but let's open that up. And you can see all your files listed as these TIFFs here. You have the option to click Attempt to automatically align source images. And then you also have the option to create a smart object. Let's not do that for now. Let's just keep it as is. Eventually we are going to do those things. In some cases, you can actually just do automatic align, see how it works, and create smart object. And from there, you can change the stack mode to get the long exposure effect. But a lot of times that doesn't work if the camera is moving or if it's not perfectly aligned by the computer and you have to manually align it. So in this case, let's go ahead and leave those off. Let's click OK. And again, we're going to wait for it to load. Okay, so once it's loaded, we can see all our files here have been loaded as a stack. So the first thing we want to do is let's look through our files. We're going to close them all down there. And let me make this a little bit smaller. And let's just check each individual file, see if they're aligned properly. So we're going to click here. That looks pretty good. Click the next file above. That looks pretty good. Again, it looks great. We might not even have to align. But when we get to this one here, we can see the camera kind of moves. Again, I'm on a drone here, so the camera kind of moves there. But we're going to have to align this here manually. So what you want to do is click the layer and the photo that is not aligned, keep it above the properly aligned shot, and change the blend mode to difference. Now you can see here anywhere that is bright is not properly aligned, so we're going to have to align that. Click Command or Control T to bring up your free transform tool, and we can move the frame up and down to align it until we get it looking right. When it's black like this, then we know it's aligned. It doesn't have to be perfect. We can use the rotation tool as well to go back and forth. And again, we're looking just for the photo to become completely black there, or at least as close as we can. We do that, we click enter, and now that looks really good there. Let's go to the blend mode again, and let's change it back to normal. And let's go to our final file here. We can see that also it is not aligned, so we're going to have to align it again there. So now our images are properly aligned. The next thing we're going to want to do is to create a smart object. So let's select all of our files here, or all of our layers. We're going to, on a Mac, click Control or right click on Windows, and then click here, Convert to Smart Object. So let's let that load. Okay, we have our smart object now. The next step is to change the stack mode of that smart object to mean. So let's show you how to do that here. We're going to click on Layer, scroll all the way down the menu. You're going to see Smart Objects, and then we're going to click here on the bottom part of Smart Objects, Stack Mode, and we're going to change the stack mode to mean. And now let's let that load. And you can see stack mode mean gives us that long exposure effect. Take a look here on the computer. When I toggle back and forth, we'll undo that. You can see the static shot. Our smart object is here. And now we apply stack mode mean, and it's back there. So again, once you have your smart object, click Layer, Smart Objects, Stack Mode, and Stack Mode Mean. And that's pretty much all there is to it. So it's very simple. It's a real neat way to do that long exposure effect, save a little money. You don't have to buy those ND filters now, or sometimes you forget your ND filter and you have nothing else to use but this technique, and it works actually really well there. And once you change the stack mode, you can just continue with your regular adjustments, dodging and burning, changing the curves, and getting a final result. I'll go ahead and show you the before and after for my final result for this image here. So just to recap, in order to get this effect with the long exposure and Photoshop using stacking, what we need to do is first capture your images, make a mini time lapse, save those images after you've done the initial adjustments to exposure and contrast, import those files into Photoshop, and align your images, change it to a smart object, and once it's a smart object, we're going to change that stack mode of the smart object to mean. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you find that trick useful for those times when you forget your neutral density filter, or for those of you who are kind of like me, don't want to spend any money on a neutral density filter. I hope that helps you get that long exposure effect by using this trick here. If you want to learn how I process these images, later down the road, I'm going to show you my full workflow with Capture One, with Lightroom, and with Photoshop to get the finished exposure that you see in this video. I hope you'll find that helpful. So visit my website, sign up for the newsletter. I'll send it out once those tutorials for my full workflow come out, and I hope you'll find those useful when they do come out. So until next time, thanks for watching and have a good day.